Hello. Today we're going to talk about stress. And before we get started, I do want to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Lori Marvis. I am board certified family and lifestyle medicine physician who happens to be going RVing full time right now in the last month. So you may hear the air conditioner, so I do apologize. It's over 100 degrees outside, so I just can't turn it off. Otherwise, I literally will melt in front of you. But today I really want to speak to you about stress and understand there's a kind of a powerful secret tool that so many of us don't use. Um, I have had many patients come in and complain that, stress really makes them unable to maintain healthy habits or to eat healthy foods because they use food as a comfort measure. And the unfortunate thing is, of course, those things have consequences, right? So when we're dealing with stress, even stress by itself can take a toll on the body, high blood pressure, insulin resistance, difficulty with sleep, all these different things. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about stress and what you can do about it. And there's this particular type of practice that you can do, but I'll throw in some of the things that we're dealing with more recently, having, putting our house on the market and having an offer and the offer falling through and moving into an RV, bringing that down, driving cross country, being in Las Vegas where it's really hot right now for another day. We'll head back to California where it's cooler, but all those things can definitely have an impact on you, especially when you just start thinking about them regularly. Everyone has them. Sometimes they kind of throw at you, and you're like, man, life, really? What more can you throw at me? Because honestly, I'm sending up the white flag, right? So I know many times you can feel that way. You wake up, some days are better than others. Some days you're just like, I just don't have it in me to be positive and make things happen. Well, let's try this. I want to show you and pull up my notes here. Basically, it has a unique name, and it's called cognitive reappraisal. Okay, so basically, it's a psychological strategy that involves altering the way you interpret or perceive stressful situations with the goal to changing your emotional response. Okay. The technique is really grounded in what we call CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. You may have heard of that before. And it basically states that, we're going to change our thoughts, emotions, and our behaviors because they're all connected, right? So when we change our thoughts, everything else will follow. And when you have negative or maladaptive thoughts, we can really alter our emotional responses and behaviors in a more positive direction. So how does it work? Well, there's 4 different steps I'm going to walk you through. So basically, you identify a negative thought. So the first step in cognitive reappraisal involves recognizing and identifying the negative or unhelpful thoughts that arise in response to a stressor. We'll use mine, for example, just recently. My house is for sale, and it's never gonna sell. It's sitting there. It's a great house, but why didn't they buy this before? Oh my goodness, we're gonna be stuck with this house forever. We're done. We want to move on to the RV. Keep going. We're in the RV. I'm stuck in Las Vegas. It's super hot. It's not my nature scene. It's a lot of lights, a lot of people. It's not my cup of tea. Yada yada. Now you can see where that can start going and spiraling literally out of control, right? So those would be the negative thought loops in my head. So others might be more catastrophic thinking, like, this is the worst thing that could happen. I always fail. Um, you know, all these things, life is always more difficult for me, yada, yada. So we overgeneralize. We just kind of amplify the perception of any stress because we keep feeding into it and making up stories about it. How many, raise your hand if you've heard this? So I'm identifying, those are my thoughts right now. Next is I'm going to challenge negative thoughts, right? So once these thoughts are identified, you just really have to think about how can I challenge them. So this involves examining the evidence for and against the thoughts, questioning their validity, and then considering the alternative, the more balanced perspective. Okay, let's challenge this thought that my house is never going to sell. Is this realistic? No, because the houses in Orange County, one, we're priced at an amazing amount. It's a great house. It's in good shape, and their average selling point is 11 days. It's been on the market for 11 days because we got stuck with the offer that fell through. But what is the realistic challenging here is like Lori, I've never had a house that we've sold that we tried to sell that didn't sell, right? Especially in this market. Next involves, really just considering a more balances things. So for example, instead of thinking I always fail, one might reframe to think that I've had successes and failures, and I can learn from this experience, right? So I think for our house, there was the appraisal was a little bit lower than we agreed price. There were some repairs that someone thought they should have at the HOAs. So we were thinking, well, maybe we can do a few little repairs in advance of the next offer to basically take care of that situation. And maybe that's why this happened. So we can absolutely get the price that we know that we want because we need to fix the house. How about that? That is really basically saying, okay, I'm going to turn this into a positive. Because that kind of leads me to the next step, which is reinterpreting the stressor. So cognitive reappraisal encourages individuals to reinterpret your stressor in a way that reduces its emotional impact, right? So this could involve viewing the stressor as a challenge rather than a threat, considering the potential for growth or learning, or simply adopting a more neutral perspective. For instance, instead of seeing a job interview as a potential disaster, maybe you might see it as an opportunity to improve and learn, right? Just like we see this follow through from the offer as an opportunity to do a few repairs and make the house even better for the next person who will make an offer, right? And I see it as well as that this house will go to the right family at the right time, and they weren't on the market yet, but now maybe they will be. There you go. Next is really implementation of the reappraised thoughts, right? So first we identified, then we challenged, and then we kind of reinterpret the stressor, and then we implement the reappraised thoughts, right? So the final step is just kind of basically taking that original negative thoughts and replacing them with those more constructive thoughts. Over time, with practice, this new way of thinking becomes automatic, right? Leading to that reduced emotional distress and better stress management overall. Because what you'll notice is that you start paying attention to what's going on in your head, and you're stepping back and going, those thoughts are not me. Those thoughts are just yes, they're being generated in my head, but I don't have to follow those thoughts. I don't have to agree with those thoughts. Me, the person observing those thoughts, can just allow them to pass, or I can challenge them, reinterpret them, and then give me something new to think about. And the more you do this, the more you believe those new thoughts that you have in your head. And many times they will come to fruition. Plus, you get a different energy about you. You feel better. You have more positive outlook on so many things. And when you have a more positive outlook, so many things come your way, more opportunities and different things. So, the benefit, again, you're going to have emotional regulation, right? When we change the way we think, we help regulate our emotions. It's easier to remain calm and have composure and face the challenges. You have to improve mental health, right? And so that reduce symptoms of anxiety, depression, and other stress-related disorders. You're going to sleep better. You're going to have enhanced resilience, right? So basically, you're more equipped to help deal with more future stressors, because life won't give up on you. It'll keep throwing stressors at you to grow. But, the more you develop a more resilient mindset, the more confidence you're going to have to face the next one. And you're going to have better decision making, right? Because when we're not coming from a place of stress and reacting out of fear or worry, we take time to be mindful and remain calm. We really allow us to have clearer thinking and make better, more wise choices and decisions, which may be to do nothing or maybe to do something. And so, again, this is really important during your really, really high stressful situations. I mean, my house is not a high stressful situation like that, but when you're dealing with something more along the lines of maybe you have a loved one that's in the hospital, and it doesn't appear that they're going to come back, right? So that would be the place that you may want to be able to use that remain calm, because there's going to be a lot of emotions running high. As a physician who's worked with families and had to tell someone, someone is brain dead, the machines are keeping them alive, having that discussion is really hard, right? And so it can be very emotional for everybody involved. It's really important to remain level-headed and understand it's hard, but at the same time, there's the decisions that need to be made. And so, again, that's just a few of the ones, but there's a few practical applications if you want to think about this. So let's talk about workplace stress, right? So when you reframe your workplace stressors, such as tight deadlines or conflicts with colleagues, you can really help reduce anxiety and improve job performance. You can do this with interpersonal relationships, right? So when you are dealing with conflicts or misunderstanding with others, cognitive reappraisal can lead to more constructive communication and stronger relationships. And I think the really important thing you can do is just step back and go, what is the story that I'm telling myself here? What is actually going on here? Is that what my interpretation? Is that really what they mean? So especially in that relationships, when my husband and I are living in this very small space, we have to constantly communicate in a way that's not challenging each other or being unkind. So this really is really helpful when, let's say, he did something or didn't do something. I can make up a story and get angry or upset, or I could just gently point that out and ask a general question. Now, how the tone of my voice and how I present myself can potentially cause some discomfort for him. So I need to be mindful of that as well. So I know the one thing I've mentioned before is the one place I know that I always have control is what I'm doing on my inner state. So I need to be mindful of what's going on in my head and my heart. And that will lead me to be kinder and give better advice and just be in a better mood. Some days you just wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Like last night, I don't know, I got to bed a little later. I woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning, but I knew I was going to talk to you guys today. And so I was like, man, Lori, you got to get your brain in a better place. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to talk about what I'm going to need to do. So I'm sharing with you what I'm doing with myself today. And I hope it's helpful because it really has been helpful for me. Pretty transparent with you guys. So, yeah. I think one of the places could be really helpful is health-related stress. If you're dealing with a health challenge, it can really help you reduce the emotional impact of your condition, and you just take a much more better coping approach, right? You can cope with it better. You can remain calm. Granted, you may not be happy about it. It may not be ideal, but you'll be in a different place and it won't be as stressful. At least that's been my experience. So I think it's a very powerful tool for managing stress, and really just altering the way we perceive and interpret these stressful situations is so important. So I'm just going to walk through those real quick again, those 4 steps. You identify the negative thoughts, you challenge the negative thoughts, you reinterpret the stressor, and then you implement the reappraised thoughts. So those 4 steps in cognitive reappraisal, and there's some great research around this. So I think there was an actual research paper back in 1975 by Ellen Langer, who I interviewed on the podcast. She's quote unquote the mother of mindfulness. You might want to check out that podcast. And by the way, if you're still here, thank you for listening this long. Please subscribe and don't forget to click the little bell. I think there's a little bell that tells you when new videos pop up. And if you really want to hear more about this and learn more about all the things that I like to teach about, you can sign up for my newsletter. The link will be in the description below this video. So thank you again for being here. As always, I'm sending joy, love, peace, and just so much gratitude for you being here. And above all, I'm sending more healing your way because we all need more of that in this world. So thanks, everyone. Have a beautiful rest of your day.